Hey friends, Mark Mandel here. Welcome to episode number 4 of Customer Experience Unsung Heroes. Thanks for coming on this journey with me. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Today is going to be a fun show. Before we get into the show, though, I have a couple of quick housekeeping things I want to talk about, one of which is really important. The biggest thing I want to cover at the beginning of this conversation while we're right out of the gate here is just to kind of share with you guys, if you have not seen this particular show before, the Unsung Heroes show, what it is and why I think it's an important and fun show to share with you. I think a lot about our profession, our customer experience profession. Having been part of it for a long time, I have a bunch of friends, good friends in the business who I think do the most amazing work you could imagine, but are often the guys behind the curtain. They're the backstage guys. They're the guys that you don't always see out in front, on the stages or getting the spotlight time. And the purpose of this show is to bring those guys into the forefront, into the spotlight, one at a time, get an opportunity for you guys out there amongst my friends to meet them. I think playing matchmaker like this between the people doing some great work and other like-minded people is a big part of what I'm doing these days work-wise, and I'm thrilled to be sharing my friends with you today, especially so. If you think back on the last episode that came out a little while ago of this particular show, the Unsung Hero show, we had an opportunity to meet a gentleman named Ian Gruber. Ian is currently the Chief Operating Officer, if you haven't seen that show, at a company called Swift, doing some really interesting work in retail CX. But all that said, one of the bigger things that I've announced this week relative to Ian is that going forward on a couple of my new shows that I'm doing, specifically the long format show, the Tales from the Trenches show, that Ian is going to become my new co-host regularly on that show. And I'm thrilled that he and I are going to be able to partner together to bring that content to you. Looking back on that Ian show, we had a long and interesting talk the other day that I'm hoping you go back and check out if you haven't seen it. And it's all about humanizing customer experience. And I think that's not an underused concept these days. When you really think about it, all the chatter, all the industry, talking heads are talking about taking the human out of the experience, right? We're talking about automation. We talk about AI. We talk about zero touch interactions. We're talking about how do we take the human being out of the customer experience? And Ian and I spent 20 minutes on that last episode talking about making sure we don't do that. We still want automation. We still want efficiencies. That goes without saying. But we talked about, let's not lose sight of the fact that we are people serving people. And how do we maintain that mindset? And I think that conversation was pretty good. And if you haven't checked it out, please do. Now, this episode, why are we here right now, right here? And that's to introduce you to another friend of mine and a gentleman who I really respect. If you don't know Mark Levy, you should. Mark is currently the VP of Customer Experience at a company called Frontier Communications. And he's had a long career in this space. And I've asked him to join me today, and we're going to just have a good dialogue for 15 or 20 minutes here, specifically about customer experience work. So without further ado, let me bring Mark onto the stage and we'll have a chance to meet one another. Mark, welcome.
Hey, Mark. Great to see you.
Thanks for being here. I realize that when we get right out of the gate here, right out of the starting gate, Mark, that you and I have come to know one another through our conversations and our shared passions and this stuff. But it's possible that the folks listening to this conversation don't know you. Can you take just a moment and just share with a little bit about you, your work, who you are, what's important to you, kind of who are you? Share a little bit about that so they know you the way I know you.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, thank you so much for inviting me on. I feel honored to be part of this series. As you said, we've had a number of conversations recently, been very enlightening. Both of us have a passion for what we're going to talk about today. My experience in customer experience has been a multi-decade experience. Wasn't always called customer experience to me, but it's always been the focus of the work that I do. It's all about the customer, right? From a career perspective, I've worked in music and media, and I've worked in technology, and most recently, prior to Frontier, I was at Comcast for about 7 years, leading up their digital experience, their customer experience for consumers. I do the same thing over at Frontier, and it's a joy. It's a joy to do the work that I do. I love actually getting on the phone with customers. Unfortunately, usually it's when they've got an issue, but I get to hear from them. I get to understand what it is that we do on a daily basis, and how it impacts their lives, and how we can take that information back and make it better for them. And obviously, everything that we're doing from a business perspective is I think, trying to make the business better, and build those relationships with those customers for long-term relationships.
One of the things I'm hoping you feel this way, but tell me if I'm missing something. I know a lot of customer experience minded people in our industry who are unique people because they're so over the top empathetic. They really are amazing, caring, loving people. And they say, you know what? I'm really doing this work because I want to make it better for people. It's like the old, the BASF ads in the past where they said, we don't make anything, we just make it better. Mm-hmm. And I think that in some ways, that's what makes customer experience people successful and who they are. Yeah. And they become almost like missionaries on that mission of making things better for others. Whether that means more profit for the company, that's great. Whether it means, more loyalty from your customers, that's great. But I think those almost are secondary benefits to the make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when I work with companies, I work with individuals in this space. I always bring it back to what problem are we solving for the customer?
Yeah,
right.
I think that's key.
And certainly, like I said, we're all in business, so there's business outcomes that we want to affect. But if we don't have customers, we don't have a business. And there's a constant tension and balance I think we all play in this space of, well, I've got this thing I want to do that I think will affect the business positively, but maybe not the best for the customer. And what I do on a daily basis is I become the voice of the customer, and I say, well, how will that work for the customer? And is there something else we can do? Is there a better way for us to explain this? Is there a better way for us to launch this? Could we change the policy a little bit, right? But be there as the customer, as their voice at the table. And I can do that because I'm talking to the customers on a regular basis, and I'm getting that feedback, and I'm looking at the feedback that we get, and I'm hearing their stories, and I'm understanding and bringing that to the table. And I really see my job, and I think I live this out in a number of ways. Some of it through the role I play at Frontier, but also in the world is to evangelize and influence customer centricity.
That's right? Key.
What does that mean? What does that mean to everybody in the business, top to bottom? What does that mean on a daily basis? How do I make decisions when I'm thinking through that lens? And so, I've got a small and mighty team over Frontier, and our job is to get out there and make sure that we're always focused on the customer outcome. And we do that also by training the people that we're working with. So I love it when I hear my words come back to me, where someone in another part of the group says, that's not really going to be a great customer experience.
There you go.
And I feel like I've done my job when that comes back, either from an IT person or from a marketing person or from even the finance team going, oh, that's not going to work. Let's figure out another way.
It's interesting you talk about that. And let's go back to this concept of representing the customer at the table for a minute. I remember there was, I don't want to date myself, so I'm not going to say how long ago, but it was a long while ago. that I was part of a transformation project for a large car company, a car manufacturer. And they were a traditionally engineering run company where they believed you build a better car, customers will come, except customers weren't coming. And one of the things we did back then, it was a novel idea. Now maybe it's a little cliched and overplayed, but I remember that we went out and there was a particular conference room in their headquarters building where the senior leadership team would meet. It's like the executive boardroom kind of thing. And we went out and we bought one of these department store mannequins, right? And we had a T-shirt made that said customer. And we got the mannequin permanently in that room at that table to represent the customer in those conversations. And we asked them, in that room, time in and time out, to when you're making big and small decisions, think about them through the filter of the person in that fake chair in the corner of the table. And how would he or she feel about what you just decided on? And if you think it's a crummy outcome, maybe we hit pause and we rethink it a little bit. And it changed the perspective from, a very much a nuts and bolts, bits and bytes kind of decision making to a more empathetic decision making. It made it more qualitative. It made it a little bit more caring. And it drove a big, big shift in their thinking. Yeah. Now imagine your role. Now you take the mannequin away and you're the guy.
Well, I'm the guy here, but I would say a very similar experience that I had over at Comcast. The history of Comcast is, from a customer experience perspective, is not good.
Everybody knows it. Everybody's seen the numbers.
But there was an understanding, and they were one of the early NPS groups, working with Bain to really start to gather data to understand from customers what was really going on and start to institutionalize the idea of customer feedback and action on that feedback.
Yep.
And one of the things that they did, I wish I could take credit for it, but they did something similar where they had these seat covers created, and they were distributed to every conference room across the campus and across the different offices around the country. And there was always a customer at the table.
There you go.
So it just said customer, right? And it was a representation of that. And it, along with the commitment from leadership to the program, to the action, to the outcomes, made a massive difference. Yeah. And I would say that's a major, in my mind, a requirement for a company to be successful, and for us to be successful is to have that support at the leadership level. You look at where I work today, the number 3 priority is customer experience, right? We got to do our business, sell the service, and then it's got to be the best customer experience. And that is from the top. It is reiterated on a daily basis. We have we'll call them like rituals where we communicate and talk about different issues that are going on and what we're finding and how we're fixing them. It is embedded into the business. And I know not everybody has that same kind of support in their business.
Yep.
So I've also really focused on this idea of influence, right? Of how to build influence as a CX leader, and how to find your allies, right? How to find the people that you can partner with to evangelize what it means to be customer centric and how to act in different times, how to build your own credibility, how to get a voice at the table. These are all really important skills that are vital to getting anything done in business in general. But as a CX leader, right, a lot of times decisions get made and they don't take into consideration what the impact is going to be. And one of the other things, and I know we talk about it quite a bit, and I write about it quite a bit, is about, in this role, you need to have you need to have a voice. You need to have your own voice, and it's challenging at times, right? To be authentic, to say, you know what, I don't agree with that, or I don't fully understand that, or how would that work for the customer, and actually say, bring those questions to the table. And it's not always easy when you're in a room full of executives,
Sure.
but it's important and vital. And so I train my team and I train others around me to to step into those moments, and it's important, and it makes a difference.
Would love to get your take on something. I want to peel this onion a level deeper from one of the things you touched on a minute ago. It's clear that there are companies out there who think customer experience is embedded in the culture and in the business, and there's others that treat it like a project.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And unfortunately, projects come and go. Right? And then when they go, we're back to some other old habits and behaviors all over again. And I give an example. I want your thoughts about this, because this is how I saw it manifest. I was working years ago for a client that was a bank, a regional bank. And my engagement with the bank was with the chief marketing officer back then. And I remember after a couple of months of positioning for getting ready to get going, she called me one day on a video setup like this, and she held up a piece of paper on the camera, and she goes, look, the CEO said we're going to do this. And I said, well, tell me what that means exactly. And she showed me a PowerPoint slide. Remember the old PowerPoint clip art of like pillars, and you had like how many pillars you could put down there? So she had, look, 5 pillars. These are the pillars. And she says, one of these pillars was customer experience. And I said, what are the other pillars? And she said, like, at the time, early digital transformation, innovation, things like that. And I said, no disrespect, I know you've worked hard for this, I said to her, but that's terrible. And she said, why is it terrible? It's a thing. We're going to do it. And I said, because when it's a pillar, it's a project.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why can't we take the customer pillar and kind of knock it down horizontally and kind of run it underneath the other pillars? And she said, well, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why would you transform your digital business if not to improve the customer outcome? Or why would you consider the hard work of innovation if not to improve the customer outcome? Right? So everything seems to be a feeder into the customer anyway. And I said, and here's a little cheat code. I said, if you're an enabler to those other projects versus a project yourself, A, it'll be stickier. But B, those projects have budget and they could fund your work. Right? You can go to the digital team and get money. You could go to the innovation team and get money. Right? Yeah. You don't necessarily need your own money to you can partner to get money. And she went, oh. And it was like this little light bulb that went off, but it caused a bit of a reset at her company. But now all of a sudden we have to reposition CX as no longer a thing, but it's embedded in everything. And that took a little bit of a leap for them to make. They made it, but it took a while.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I've seen that in multiple places where, CX is an afterthought, or it's or like you said, it's a project. It's and how quarter to quarter things change, and it's frustrating like that. I did find at both the Comcast and the Frontier here, like it is embedded everywhere, and that comes from the CEO, truly not a pillar of like, oh yeah, there's this customer experience thing we do, but it's literally, it comes up in every conversation.
That's so important.
And that's powerful. And it's shown. I mean, if you look at the businesses, those 2 businesses in particular, they've grown tremendously. They've increased their customer satisfaction, their customer retention, and it's impacted their business positively. So
I can see it. I totally see it. Moving from like being product centered to customer centered drives profitability. It ultimately has to.
Yeah.
Right. Getting truly there though is the journey. Before that, you see that the uptick in the money.
Well, it is, and I also think that you've got every team, every group has their perspective kind of on how they're going to achieve the business goals.
Yep.
And one of the things I do now is create a common vernacular, common language and definitions so that we're all speaking the same thing. If you've ever noticed, if you ask 10 people what they think customer experience is, you're going to get, oh, well, it's customer service. It's,
It's
it's
everything.
journey mapping. It's this, it's that, right? So I think it's really important to have a common language, right? Common words. Every business creates their own acronyms, right? You create those, you get everybody saying them, and it's the thing you know. But you got to have someone like me and my team who are evangelists, who are constantly putting that out there, and it takes time. But it's just so worth it, and it gives people, I think, a different perspective on their role on a daily basis. It's not just I'm doing this work. It's like I'm doing this work because these people, right? I like to say, like, the work we do is like you said before, it's a human relationship. It's a human opportunity.
Yep.
And I don't know. It's become a mission of mine. I
think that's amazing.
Yeah.
You mentioned something a minute ago I want to talk more about. You talk about your writing, right? It's a very personal thing, I think, that you're doing out there to share. And if you're willing, I'd love to hear more about kind of where that came from, what inspired you, and kind of what you're up to on that front.
Sure. So we had this little thing called the pandemic a few years ago.
I remember.
You may have heard of it.
Yeah.
And I think it created a lot of introspection for people, myself included. Created a lot of challenges, mentally, physically. What I ended up doing, I'll kind of cut this story short, is I realized I was kind of overcompensating in certain areas and undercompensating in others, and really the undercompensating was in my self-care. So because I wasn't taking care of myself, I started to break down, and it was harder for me to focus on the work that I was doing and all of that. So I ended up taking some time to work on myself, to give myself that time to kind of calm down and get back to what I saw, or really find who is Mark Levy? What am I about? And what do I want to bring to the world? And so, and then also what was in the way of doing that? And certain things in particular, the fear of someone confronting me in public was a big one.
That's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah. So it's like, you don't want to say anything because, there's trolls out there. There's people out there. They may not agree. They may not, and then, like, what will they think of me? And so I decided to lean into that fear, because I felt like I had a lot of experience in life that I thought could be of value to others. Because as I've talked with others, I felt I heard similar stories, but they didn't feel they had anybody to talk to. They didn't feel they had support. They didn't know what to do. And I felt like, and they felt very isolated. So I wanted to start writing and supporting people in being more authentic and in knowing that they're not alone. And so I have a few different things that I write about. There's some things I do on LinkedIn. They're very much about leadership and about authenticity and about breaking through fear. And the other side of my writing is really about my passion for customer experience. I have a newsletter, podcast that I do. I've got some courses and some books that I've written and things like that. And so I really leaned into expressing myself in a way that I thought would be of value to others. And so far it's been, I've gotten great response, and, I continue to do it. And I have also committed to doing things on a regular basis, being consistent in ways that I hadn't been in the past. And so I highly recommend it.
I think that type of vulnerable sharing is such a gift from you to so many people. And as somebody, I know I enjoy following your writing. I wanted to say thank you for for being able to share that with people like me, who I can learn from it, but also relate to it at so many levels. And so it's really a good thing.
Thank you.
Thinking about the business for a minute, talk about the future. I don't mean the future of your company, but the future of our industry, of our CX profession.
Yep.
You hear every version. You get the pontificators out there who are saying, "Oh, this customer experience thing, the fad is over. It's going to die. We're going to go back to just having operational mindsets again." Others go, "No, it's going to be more important than ever." Curious. I mean, I don't think there's such a thing as a wrong or right answer in it, but I'm just curious what your version of the answer is. How do you see the future? If you had that crystal ball in front of you that say, "Boy, I think a couple of years out, a few years out, we're looking at this." What does this look like to you?
Yeah. So I'm a bit of a geek. Love tech. I love the creativity, actually, of technology, of the people who create technology, of the way that they're able to create solutions. So I do see a continued investment in technology that will ideally either proactively address issues or enable self-service for those issues that are really simpler to handle. But that there is this level of human interaction that will always be there, right, to handle the harder situations, those moments where human connection is necessary. So all the talk about AI and automation, I think it's happening. It's going to happen. I'm a big fan, and I think there's lots of opportunity, and I think everyone should be investing in testing and trialing ideas focused on real business needs, not in the sense of replacing humans, but there's lots of opportunities for augmenting and that has both a customer and business impact. So I think that's really large. I'd like to see more teams like mine that are more kind of culture focused, creating an infrastructure that supports the business more in understanding and kind of training them on how to do these things, right? So it doesn't become relegated to, well, there's the customer experience team and they do all this stuff. It's like there's nothing wrong with a product owner creating a journey map. I don't need a CX team to build the journey map or do personas or research or things like that. So I for one, I'm a big fan of CX as a discipline and as a process that is repeatable and trainable, and I'd like to see more of that.
Cool. I think that's exciting sounding. I was listening to a Jeff Bezos interview from this week. Apparently, I didn't know this. He went back to work at Amazon again. And apparently, not that he needs the paycheck, but I think he was there to say he wants to help influence their AI thinking over at Amazon. And specifically, he was talking about he sees AI in the future being like electricity, where he said it's just kind of part of everything. It's an enabling layer of everything that we're doing. And if we don't infuse AI in our interactions, in our businesses, in our products and services, we're kidding ourselves. Because it's good. But it's not, as you said, I don't think he's proposing that it's there to replace you and I. It's there to make our jobs easier and more productive in what we do. Yeah. So how can Amazon better serve customers better, or their partners better, or their sellers better? Right? And it's what enablement can it be? What augmentation could they get out of that? But it was an interesting conversation. You mentioned that you're doing some of your work, some of your writing on LinkedIn. I'm sure people are wondering, how can they find you? How do they track you down if they want to talk to you more about some of the things you're talking about here? What's a good way for them to find you?
Yeah, so there's probably three good ways. One is on LinkedIn, just Mark Levy, Frontier, or customer experience. I don't know, you'll find me in there. The other is I have a newsletter. It's dcxnewsletter.com.
I'll put those links down below.
Great. And that is a 2-time a week newsletter for CX professionals. My intention there was really around inspiration and bringing ideas, insights, information, stories, and ideas to life for people who are passionate about this as well as I am. And so that's available. And then marklevy.co is a website where that lists all the different things that I do, with the links to my books and my courses and other things like that.
I'll put all those links in the posting here so everybody can find you. Mark, thank you for hanging out with me today. It's such a fun chat with you. I'm very, very grateful for the time. And thank you for getting a chance for my friends who follow this show to learn a little bit about you. Thank you for hanging out here with us.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, it's a passion for both of us, and we don't need these moments to have these conversations.
It's so true.
I love it. I appreciate the opportunity.
The reality, as we wrap this up, is just that there's so many people out there doing so much good work. And I just wish there was an opportunity to sit down like this one-on-one with all of them. But I would be doing 6 shows a day, every day. And none of us have time for that. But thank you for making your time for this. Listen, if we don't speak over the next couple of weeks, being that we're sitting here in early December, have a good holiday ahead.
Thank you.
And stay well, my friend. And we'll talk again soon. And thank you, everybody, for being part of this journey with Mark and me. We'll see all of you guys again next time around. Take care, guys, and take care, Mark. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.